I've just punched through the lip as it's starting to curl over. And then I've come up and all the sprays whipping over my face. Couldn't see anything for 2 or 3 seconds. And then I just see it, the Godzilla coming towards us.
Well, a lot of people obviously know that a classic, we bloody love fishing, but in fact, my first love was bodyboarding. And growing up in Cronulla, it was just a bodyboarder's paradise. And the highlight of my youth was always Shark Island Challenge and Shark Island itself, obviously. And today I'm stoked to chat to a bloke who's playing a massive part in actually bringing bodyboarding and the Shark Island Challenge back to its former glory. Sorry for that. And Luke O'Connor, welcome, mate. Thanks for jumping on.
Oh, Dan, thanks, mate. Thank you for having us. And stoked to talk shop about the Island Challenge and anything you wanted, mate. Just appreciate coming on the program, really.
I mean, I appreciate your time, but look, when I was younger, coming up, my whole life revolved around bodyboarding. The whole way through school, like all I'd think about is Shark Island, Point, Patch, all those areas. We'd have the little bloody yellow flip books. We'd be drawing waves on them, shape and blue tack, all that sort of thing. And I just had one singular purpose and one thought in my head at all times, and it was bodyboarding. And as I got older, I sort of lost that a bit. And I drifted away, life gets in the way, work, family, everything. And I lost that passion for a long, long time. And then last year, I just saw these little things on social media, like a bit of a drop of SIC on there. And then, a couple of people that came out, the Shark Island Challenge was back for the first time, I think, since 2016. And I got that flutter in my stomach, and it just ignited this fire into me, man, of just that love for bodyboarding again. And thanks for bringing that back for one. And I'm just frothing on bodyboarding again, all because of that, because I feel like it lost so much of its, I guess, flame or glory. Like bodyboarding was at a real high, obviously, when I was younger growing up. And I'm rambling.
Oh, dude, so sweet. I can see the passion coming out of you, but and
when I don't even know what to say. Like it just ignited this fire into me, and I just froth, and I just want it to come back to its former glory. So where'd that all come from for you?
Well, so pretty much I can't take all the pats on the backs, mate. It really has been a team effort. And I think with Mark Sadler, Sam Venn and myself all working normal, 9-to-5 jobs or running our own businesses, it was a team effort that kind of got this thing back off the ground. You were so close to being correct in saying the last one was 2016. It was actually 2017. And I'll say a small fact off the side with that. I had so much egg on my face when I interviewed Jace Finlay once about his career and his bodyboarding. And I made the same mistake. I actually left the East Coast to drive across the West Oz and start a trip with my partner at the time, Lauren, at the middle part of 2017. And I missed the challenge that year. Jace Finlay wins the challenge that year. It's the last one that we'd had for until 6 years into the future. And Mark, Sam and myself revived in 2024. And the feeling I had when I had realized halfway through the interview that I did not know that he had won that challenge was just like gut wrenching. I was like, oh my God, he's an idol of mine. And I've just cocked up one of his greatest wins of all time. But that as like a side note, man, coming from 2017, rebirth in 2024, it was exactly the reasons that you were just speaking about, man. It's the froth. You see people, as you grew up in Cronulla, man, you surf the island, all the waves around there. When that headland lights up from the Point, the Patch and the island, a big southeast or east-southeast lines are wrapping in. You've got the pros in town. They're putting on a show. The level of bodyboarding just goes dus. And it brings everyone together. And I think that's what Mark, Sam, and myself really wanted to do again. We were surfing the island for the last 6 years, had a couple of swells, obviously had COVID. Things were kind of, up and down. World started to get back on his feet. And Mark actually came to us, Sads, the president of the Shark Island Challenge Committee, and said, hey, at the time, do you guys want to get this going again? And at first, me and Sam, not were apprehensive, but we were kind of like, you're taking the mickey? Like, you know what I mean? Thank you so much for considering us, but we don't know how to run this comp, or we know how to surf out the island and we love it, and we've got people in the industry that we speak to, but running an international bodyboarding comp is a bit of an undertaking. And he kept pushing, and this is what Sads is so good at. He's the go-getter. He's the hustler. He's the man that makes things happen. And without him, we definitely wouldn't be here today. So that emerged, the comp rebirthed, so to speak. We had a couple of hurdles at the start, just getting, council permits, dealing with like just the smallest of logistics, like even just getting rash shirts done, even getting like water safety sorted, doing event management plans, finding 24 sponsors for the athletes and making sure that those athlete sponsors, which comprise of $1,500 each, helped boost the budget and, make the event actually viable. Because, 40 and Alex Leon back in the day, I'm not saying they had, large amounts of cash to throw around when it came to sponsorships, but it just seemed to be in a slightly better place that gave it a bit of a leg to stand on, especially in the humans days, with 40 and stuff. And then Leo was actually sanctioned, as the uh, I guess the director of the APB at the time, and so he was in a designated role, and that was kind of his job. So for us three, just managing it part time, those were the kind of hurdles we had to jump over. But in the end, we all had our different skill sets and areas of expertise. Sam heavily, drenched in like the media world. His photography is amazing. His ability to organize shoots on the go, and also just whip up so much graphic design work. Like everything you see on the Instagram is pretty much Sam,
Oh, right.
Mark. Yeah, so like Sam's made that pretty much content. Sadler's pretty much curated together. I'll do the words behind it, and then it's like a three-piece feed almost that just goes up. And without each of us in on it, something's kind of fall away, so to speak. So I think we're very lucky to have us three doing it, because if one of us or two of us were doing it, I don't know if it would be back today.
Yeah, right. Wow. And so you were sort of a bit of a face to it as well, weren't you? Or at least I saw it a lot. How did that feel? Like you didn't, like you said before, you didn't really have all that experience moving into it. And next thing, you and the other two guys, you're like the faces of this thing, and you're pumping it up, and you got international guys coming in, you got all the local legends, and you're sort of reliving like I always say that you mentioned the human days, and I think 2001 was the human Shark Island Challenge,
Yeah.
and that is the absolute highlight of my childhood. And I'll never forget. I still watch that on YouTube. So you're coming back and reviving this competition that was, well, for me, the pinnacle of it. Trying to compete with that always had the potential to flop, whether it was production or it was tides, winds, weather. There's a million things that could go wrong with it. How was that anxiety leading up to that event kicking off, and even I guess calling it on from start to calling it on? How do you feel that whole way through? Because that would have scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, it was certainly daunting. And as you said, you do have a little bit on your shoulders when it comes to making the right call with swells and winds and tides. And that's still probably the hardest part of the competition today. Even now in 2025, grappling with an east swell that just kind of went offshore this afternoon. Sads was down there already videoing it and making sure that we weren't missing out on anything. We've been in cahoots with the SwellNet boys, making sure that the long range forecasts were, being meticulously scanned over. Huge shout out to Craig, Stu, and Steve, and all the fellows over there. They do an incredible job, and they see things in the charts that we just don't. So, really good to confer back to them. But yeah, being the face of the Island Challenge, I wouldn't say I'm fully the face. I just think I'm the bloke that can talk the most crap and continue on with like a
Yeah.
smile on my face. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
it's one of those things where Sam and Mark, are also great at public speaking, but I think with the podcast, as we were speaking before, and like yourself, Dan, like how to kind of curate a situation and make sure that the correct points get across and they're communicated, and that's always been a stronger point of mine. Actually, because believe it or not, when I was younger, I had an horrendous stutter. Like I'm
Really?
talking, when I was in primary school, I was heavily bullied for this stutter because I would go into a situation, be pumped up, and wanted to share my thoughts, but unfortunately, I would just come in and word salad it up so badly. Like it was like a poorly made Caesar salad, like missing the eggs and the croutons, like it was just bacon and a bit of fucking Caesar sauce with lettuce, and it just wouldn't come across well. And then my mum, beautiful, sweet mum, saw this and realized I had to get some speech therapy work. So I would be in the afternoons, I think 2 days a week, I'd be working with a speech therapist where I would be jumping on a trampoline, squeezing two stress balls, and also reciting certain sentences or trying to, elaborate on certain words or whatever it was to get my mind off the because it was almost like a missing neuron link or something in my head. Like you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
come across properly. And
yeah,
once I started doing that and thinking without thinking almost and just speaking, then it started to come naturally. So I think I was from a poor situation, there was a silver lining, and I think I had to work extremely hard to get to the level I am now to be able to even just have a convo with you today. So yeah, that's probably why I am the front man and stuff like that, just because yeah, of those sort of traits. But at the same time, like Mark and Sam do so much work. Like if there's three of us there and you'd look at 100%, it's 33.3% repeater. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yep.
Between all of us. And I'm lucky to put my head on, a couple of podcasts or do a couple of launches in front of the camera for, going on Orange Alert for the swell and all that stuff. But I've even said to the boys, like, we got to get going this together because we're a threesome. You know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
sexually, but like as like businessmen, like we want to be united as a team. But yeah, I'm happy to do it, but at the same time, I just want everyone to know that it's definitely a three-piece team.
Yeah, how good, eh? Yeah, that's pretty wild that you overcame that. Now you're literally hosting. You hosted the whole challenge, which it went for a whole day, didn't it? You were sitting there most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty classic. I think we're definitely going to switch it up this year where we'll have more of a roster. I'm still yet to
Right.
to, to do that, but we've got Brendan Newton coming on as a
Yeah,
co-commentator, which he was so good with the interviews last year.
he
Like,
was on the boat, wasn't he?
yeah, he was killing it.
All day
Like,
on a boat too.
yeah, and in those swells, we were
Yeah,
very lucky to even have that boat because in normal circumstances with any other boat, I don't think they would have been able to stay out there. But the skipper of that boat and all the different leveling equipment on there. They've got this Japanese tech where supposedly like the bow has an electronic leveler, which as soon as it goes over a certain way, I'm sure fishers and a lot of people would know about it, but it levels out the boat so the swell lines aren't so severe.
oh, like a gyroscope or something, so it's not being
Yeah,
used. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, exactly. Again, I'm not a boatie at all, so when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, that's
yeah.
pretty
Cool.
legit, pretty high tech." Yeah, I'm like, "Sweet."
Yeah,
And Brendo was doing like really well out there, and we're going to swap him out this year to come into the booth and get Dane Woods, who is just a local legend from Stanley. He did a lot of beach commentary last year
right.
with Declan McMullen, who's also another legend down at the Cold Coast Bodyboard Club, just down the road, and he'll be on the boat, Woodsy. He'll be spinning some yarns as athletes come in and out, post and pre-heat, and I can't wait to see that because he's got some Australian colloquialism in him. Don't you worry, he knows how to spin a couple of good yarns, so that'll be really good. And then we'll have Toby, Ben, and Mez. We'd really like Whitey to come over again because he was such a good addition to
He's
have
got
a
laugh.
yarn on the. Yeah, and the way he commentated the spelling mistake of Louis Remington during that heat was just unbelievable. He just went with it, and I was kind of thinking, where is this going to go? But he just made it flow, and it was so good to have him. So hopefully he comes back over, and um, yeah, and then I think we'll probably have a couple other sponsors come in and out, but definitely not going to try and do 8 hours of talking again because by the end of the day I was just spent. When like you have your wedding or you have like a special moment, say where you or your partner are the center of attention, and you got to smile and speak all day. It just felt exactly like that, and I was like, oh man, I need a drink after this.
Yeah, it's exhausting, eh?
Mm.
And you just had a baby too, didn't you? Last year.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Huey came 3 days before the comp, so we were
Yes.
so lucky, Dan, because my missus was looking at me going, mate, if this baby's coming, you're leaving. And I'm like, of course, of course, of course. I can only imagine how dramatic it would have been if I just felt a tap on the shoulder during the broadcast, yank me off.
Stick Whitey in
Life's
there for 8 hours.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. But Lozzie does things super quick, man. She actually, she's a very, beautiful, kind, nurturing woman. I'm very lucky to have her in my life, but she does things very quick and she's very impatient. She births you in 2.5 hours.
No way.
Birthed him actually just over my shoulder here in the corner of the room.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So we had our
Shit.
Yeah, we had our first boy at the hospital, and I think we wanted to change things up this time. And Lozzie was really confident to do one at home, so she had one of her good friends. Haley Perry was her doula, and she got over here halfway through it. I was still trying to fill up the bath downstairs, like running around like a madman, thinking like we'll be going down there and there'll be a process. It'll be 8 or 10 or 20 hours or whatever it is. 2.5 hours, mate. Job done. I had actually the first day, my new employee, Tyler Frazerick, who's also another local Grom down in Cronulla. He's a really good bodyboarder in his own right. He's moved down to Wollongong, doing naturopathy and all that kind of jazz. He's come to work 3 days a week for me. It was his first day on the job. And he's come in, and Loz was like, something's different today and whatever. I had to sort him out, send him off to work. I was supposed to go out with him for the day. And he was like, "Oh man, this is hectic. You just do what you need to do. I'll try to do my best, and I'll speak to you in the day." At 10:30, I messaged him and said 2 words: "Job done." And then that was it. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
all over. Crazy times.
Yeah, wild. Oh well, that's good timing. But you mentioned before the boat that was out there. So what was the reception like in Cronulla? Obviously, it is a bit of a bodyboarding hub. Anyway, what was that reception like with people? I guess coming around you with the boat, for example, and trying to help out to get this thing successful and make it what it was.
Oh man, there was so much help from the local community. Wish I could remember the skipper's name and the boat. This would be a great question for Sadler because he was the main man organising that aspect of the comp. But we had Kieran Woodall on there, who was just a godsend. Really, he communicated so well throughout the event. Like in the two ways, constantly backwards and forwards with the lifeguards or with Sads and myself or Sam or anything that needed to be communicated. You had Johnny Showell, you had Ben Hall on there, you had Gleeso. They were all carrying on, having a good time, drinking some beers. They all had to have seasick tablets, I'm pretty sure, because it was that rocky.
All day.
Yeah, but yeah, they gave us such a discounted price on the hire of that boat for the day, and then all the other just local community companies and brands. It was ridiculous, from like loaf sandwiches down in Cronulla Mall to Matt Callahan Real Estate. Obviously, huge shout out to Toby Player and Bodyboard King. He's on again this year, and he's just such a supportive dude, and lets us kind of run our own show. Obviously, we run things by him, but he's just so carefree and casual and trusts us, immensely, which is great. Um, and yeah, we had hub boards on, we had hand picked. Jeff was amazing. He was just pumped. He was actually going to come over, but he had to relinquish his spot for Josh. When Josh was riding for hub boards, but we're getting Jeff over this year, so
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was a really nice mix up. And then Osler and Rossi had handpicked boards. Like those boys are legit. And
Yeah.
Osler making all the way to the final, getting third, getting the left in the final, which is unheard of, and such a pure competitor and such a strategic freak that I have a huge amount of respect for him. Plus, his bodyboards are all time, man. There's such a difference between receiving just a standard stock board, which can be excellent. Don't get me wrong. There's really good stockies out there, NMD being one of the major brands, but handpicked in the feel of having it in Cronulla, well, at Carring Bar, literally only 3.5 k's away, and having those boards on display, being ridden in the comp. You've now got like Marley Dunn, who's taken on handpicked. You've had Louis Finnegan pick up handpicked since then. Like they're building such a good team, and to have him in the comp and then him to get third in the final was just so fitting. You know what I mean? And you could feel the community was gelling over that, and it was just a good way forward for bodyboarding in general.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned actually there's a couple of big names there. So outside of the Cronulla community, what about that whole worldwide thing? Because Mike Stewart come out too, didn't he, for it?
Yeah,
A whole
Mike
lot.
came out, which was incredible. He did a beautiful classic forward spin off maybe a 10 to
Yeah.
12 footer at Surge, which again, like it was great to have the comp back. The conditions obviously were a little bit too south, but it had the size there and it had the kind of wow factor with the headland all kind of roaring. Great to see Mike there. Jake Romero came out. Jared Houston. Unfortunately, Jared was locked in for this year, but he's had some visa issues.
Yeah.
South Africa is a very hard place to obtain a passport and a visa, and because he's been relocated over into Puerto Rico, I think there's been some sort of lapse of his passport and his visa. So him not being in South Africa, it's been very hard to try and reorganise that. fortunately can't make it out. It did work in well though because we had 25 people in the comp, Dan. We're only
What?
supposed to have 24.
Right. Oh,
So,
right. So what are we
yes,
going to do? Kick one.
dude, Steph Corcalis, the Portuguese wizard, who was another international, was in it last year, got invited back this year. The top 10 get automatically invited back in. Steph, at the start of the year, or maybe even more, yeah, it was probably February or so. He said to us, "Look, the timeframes of me coming back to Oz are not ideal. I'm probably not going to make the comp. So can you start to look for someone else, and I'll confirm in 2 months' time or whatever." When reading his email and speaking to him, we kind of thought, "Oh, there's no hope in hell he's coming out." You know what I mean? Like, and if
Yep.
he's saying that to us already, we probably should start looking to fill it. We go to fill it, and then Steph puts his hand up 2.5 months later and says, "Oh, I'm still really keen to come. Is there a spot?" We'd already offered the spot, but because he was in the top 10, we wanted to honor that. So we ended up with 25, and we were just hoping someone would drop out. Not that you don't want the people you invited to be in the comp, but just the numbers were so obscure. 25,
Yeah.
is not 24, and it's not an even number, so it's very hard to stack the heats evenly. And as history's laid out, Jared has unfortunately fallen off the perch, and Steph's in.
Shit, there we go for this year.
Yeah.
So last year, what did you actually think of the comp overall? Because I
Look,
loved it personally.
thanks, man. Thank you. And we were pumped. Like we definitely were. And to your points before about like the froth and the excitement it brings to the community, and just the general area of Cronulla, I think it was really important to see it back. Even listening to your podcast with Lester, and he made the account, like it felt like the 2001 challenge again, where it was at the peak of Boogan, like the late 90s and the early 2000s. You had everyone keen on it. There was whispers all around town. Is it going to run? Who's going to be in it? What's the swell going to be like? And that's the reason why Mark and myself want to run it, is because to get back to those core values of a community that just comes together, boogs, puts everything else aside, and pushes himself in the water at one of the world's heaviest slabs. And that one world's heaviest slabs is lucky enough to be in suburbia, in one of the biggest metro cities, arguably the biggest metro city in Australia. Melbourne always like to put their hand up, but I think we kind of take the cake with that one. So with all that in mind, we were really pumped. The only thing was that we just wanted the swell to be a bit more east, and that's been like the hardest thing for us. We it didn't scar us, but we just want to be really particular moving into this year that we want to see it wrapping heavily over surge, because you saw some great bodyboarding in the earlier rounds when that tide was a little bit lower and the swell hadn't really reached its peak. But you look at the first couple of semis, like, man, it was like Sean Pine is a veteran out there. He's arguably one of the best bodyboarders to come out of Cronulla. He's arguably one of the best bodyboarders to come out of Australia, really. And in my opinion, he could have gone on, if there was a pathway, to be a world champion. He's a very talented bodyboarder. He was copping an absolute licking out there, and he knows that place better than most. Like, he's up there, in my opinion, with the top echelon of the Andrew Lesters and the Ballards and all that sort of stuff. So watching him in that situation, it was a little bit tough because he didn't get his chance, and a couple of people didn't get their chance. I know Liam Lucas broke his leash quite early on, and then it was a bit of a carry on to get his board and get him back out there. And so my point being is, we want to run the comp this year and be selective in a swell that's going to allow the reef to really light up and to show all three portions of the wave: peak, white rock, surge. If we can get that, and we can get some nice offshore winds, even split up the comp, say from 2 hours in the morning to 4.5 hours in the afternoon, or vice versa, with whatever the tides give us, because we pretty much got 6.5 hours of competition with the addition of the women's straight out final with Sophie Leathers and Lily Pollard. So if we can get that and have enough east in it, we're laughing. And that's why we look so heavily at this week's swell. Like, we were so keen last Friday when the charts were out. We saw sweet low spinning out in the Tasman. There's going to be a high coming in behind it. The way it's positioned is going to have winds off the southwest flank, and it's going to give us offshore winds. Again, I'm regurgitating from swell nets. You know what I mean? Just in
Yep.
taking their kind of knowledge and putting into words. But it was all good, and then it downgraded on Saturday, it downgraded on Sunday, and then as you've seen this whole week, I'm sure Newcastle's been the same. It's just been rain and getting flogged with crap winds, and we've just seen this afternoon that the wind's gone light northwest. It's starting to clean up, but it was that easterly direction that we really wanted. This swells east northeast. You know, this afternoon it was 76 degrees. I think tomorrow's 82 or 83. And it's just not going to give those three parts of the wave that you need for proper bodyboarding. You know, as Lester said in his podcast, you need the wave to grow down the line. It's not a
Yeah,
wave that stands tall the whole way. Like it grows from a 4-footer into an 8-footer. And that's when you see the best waves.
yeah, the wilder stuff. And speaking of Leicester, like, what about that finish? Hey, last year, that was just good outcome. Like, I would have obviously loved Leicester to win it, but still, like, it was Benny Sawyer, wasn't it? You can't, like, what an ending.
Wasn't it? It was so dramatic because we only realised at the end of the semi-final that he had broken his scapula or
Yeah,
fractured his scapula. And,
yep,
you know, anyone to take on Shark Island fully fit is an undertaking. Anyone to take on Shark Island with one arm is fucking psycho.
insane.
It's insane. He did it so well. Like even when he was riding some of those barrels, it didn't look like he was impinged at all. He looked like he was just still fluently coming through. There was only half a point separating him and Benny, and it literally came down to just slightly being deeper in a couple of barrels. Benny Sawyer was sorry, and that was
Yep.
probably just because Lester was like, "Fuck, mate, I'm lucky to even be out here. I'm lucky to even be making these waves. He'd be in so much pain." And I think if the roles were reversed, you'd probably see Leicester having his second Island challenge on the mantelpiece. Stoked for Benny. He deserves it. He really does. And I'm not saying Benny couldn't have beat Leicester, you know, when they were both fully fit, but it was just a monumental effort for Andrew to get so close to Benny Sawyer by half a point with a broken scapula. Like it's game over usually, and he just pushed through and did it. So it was, and he came to the fucking after party. He came to the presentation.
Into
Like
it. Yeah.
you know what I mean? He turned up. He's just kind of holding his shoulder, and I'm like, man, do you need like an injection or something? Do you need some cortisone? Like, what is going on? And he was still in great spirits, and it just shows what a legend he is. You know, like he's a great guy.
Yeah, yeah, and he's been riding that wave a long time. I remember, again, another highlight of me growing up there is sitting there out at Shark Island on big days and just watching all those boys just ripping through surge. It's like there's nothing like it, and that's something I guess the camera doesn't quite catch. That when you're actually out there, it's a whole different beast compared to what you actually see on film.
For
And I
sure.
wish you could catch that somehow. I don't know how. The drone actually really helps. The drone's a really good angle.
It definitely does because it shows all the kind of contours of the reef and how you've literally got like a couple of inches of water underneath you. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean because even some of those south barrels that they were getting, like even Marley's one in the final where he kind of did cutting and spun in and came out and rode high. That's really critical because like that wave's going, you know, top to bottom, then it's squeezing in on you and you're trying to navigate like with the reef, you know, in the corner of your left eye, popping out, and there's so much going on. And you know, the island is a very imperfect wave, and I think that's what makes it so enjoyable to watch because it's not like you know, you look at Chopes, man. Chopes is undeniably one of the greatest waves in the world, but it's rinse and repeat almost every wave. Yes, there's more West Bowl ones that wrap in harder and the more Boog ones, and you know, you've seen Shane Ackerman's wave out there, and you know Grizz and Simon Thornton, and so many good bodyboarders have got epic waves out there. But it's a perfect wave, and if you choose the perfect ones correctly, it seems that like you can get in that spot like a lot of the great Tahitian surfers over there at the moment and thread the needle because you know what it's going to do. At the island, you do not know what it's going to do at all. And you know, even listening to your potty with Marty, man, it's like shippies. You come in behind shippies, you can think you're picking the right one, and I'm sure 9 out of 10 times Marty does, but there's always that uncertainty there, and that's what we love about Shark Island. Like, how is this wave going to play out? It's so dramatic. It's got so much theatre. And as you said, even being out there in the lineup, you get such more of a feel for the energy in the lineup. And when someone gets a good one or a good wave's coming, everyone's eyes are just on that person. It almost goes kind of quiet. We hear people yelling and screaming on the opposite end of the spectrum, and they're all looking behind their shoulders. The wave implodes on the reef. You see just rooster tails, explosions come out, and are they going to make it into the channel? Are you going to see their rail carving through, or are you just going to see them washed into Blackwoods, and their session might even be over? So yeah, it's such a good wave, and I really hope we get to see that this year.
Yeah, me too. And I guess speaking on those angles or anything, was there anything you learnt from last year that you're going to update or change this year?
With the actual camera
With
angles,
everything, the whole broadcast and how you're doing it?
yeah. So we're going to do through sporting news again,
Yep.
which
That's
was
YouTube. That was on YouTube, wasn't it?
Oz, yeah. And
Yeah.
Trent Beattie over at Sporting News has been such a great help, man. He's filmed so many of the highlight reels and the promo reels leading up to the comp. He's come to a lot of our events and has, really worked hard, tirelessly behind the scenes to kind of, you know, make us look as professional as humanly possible. And it's kind of hard for bodyboarders sometimes. But Trent's a real passionate guy, and he's helped out massively. So it'll be going through the Sporting News YouTube again. A couple of changes to the broadcast, I guess, is we moved away from our previous contractor and have engaged Chris Smith. Unfortunately, forgot the name of his production company, but he does a lot of work for Surfing Oz and the WSL.
Right.
He did Bells last year. He's over doing the Stab High comp right now in Japan. He's a very dialed in production guru, and he can actually operate a lot of these cameras remotely. So he will be on site for this one, but he's got all this gear now that's got Wi-Fi transmitters that'll be going back from the cameras to his broadcast truck, and he'll just be going, with 5 or 6 screens, bam, 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 and hopefully, fingers crossed, producing a very similar product to what the WSL produced. So,
Right.
been watching watched Puerto Rico recently, and then now been watching Margie's and Bell's before that, and obviously they had the Burley Pro 2 moved from Snapper, which is amazing. I'm a huge fan of surfing also, and I take a lot of inspiration from that side of the broadcast, especially because I feel if I, as a true bodyboarder, can sit there and watch those broadcasts all day long and waste all the data on my phone at work, watching them as I'm working away, I think it'd be a really good look for bodyboarding. So with Chris and his team coming on, Adrian Emerton's there, helping massively out with Glenn Sullivan, who's also an old guru out the island, and him and Adrian work hand in hand in a lot of, filming and production jobs. Adrian's also bringing out the Common Thread film that should be kind of finished maybe by the end of this year or early next year. I don't want to put a end date on it for him, but he's been working tirelessly to kind of prop up the sport of bodyboarding and to use his professional prowess and his technical abilities to kind of get us up to that level of surfing. So there is that respect kind of worldwide, and not to say the really good surfers don't respect bodyboarders, but I think the general surfing population probably doesn't understand, one, as you just said before, when the waves are on show, getting the feel of what's happening out of that slab, and that's sometimes being missed because a lot of surfing comps, you can watch them and, for example, the Burley Pro, the Gold Coast Pro is held at Burley. Burley's a point break. It's a fun wave, but they make it look amazing. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
Where we've got an amazing wave, we just need to make it look amazing. So we really feel like this broadcast this year should really kind of up it, and we're really excited to see what kind of comes of that. That's probably one of the major changes for the comp, and I think also another major one was kind of making sure we had a better layout of the event, because we were kind of condensing that house last year and probably didn't have a dedicated VIP area or an athlete area. We had really good activations going on, but yeah, just kind of branching out a bit more. We'll be using like the front of Roker Street there, where you've got that old fence with all the locks on them, and it's just got that one seat right in front of the island.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll be having the judges tent there, the beach operations. I think Toby will be selling some merch up there. And then we've got behind us, we've been lucky enough, an old stalwart out the island, Tristan Barfield. You might remember him from back in the day. Do you remember Tristan?
I might know his head.
I reckon you would for sure. Definitely
Yeah.
would. He's a
Might forget his
recognisable
head.
character.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of us recognise our faces, but don't put the names to him. But he's a good mate with Ballard, and he's got a couple of units right behind where we're going to set up in front of the island there on Roker Street. He actually owns like the 3 or 4 front units there, so we're going to be able to use one of his
Yep.
Airbnbs, and
Oh,
we'll
how
have,
good's that?
yeah, epic, man. We'll
Yeah,
have
man.
judges up. I mean, we'll have the commentary up there, we'll have the production up there, and we'll have like a kind of central comms area. And then we'll be expanding down to the next grass patch that kind of is on the south side of Blackwoods there, where you've got some more green space and you can kind of got more of a, I guess, like a southwest to northeast view of the island as you're going across the bay. And that's where we're setting up the VIP area, a couple activations, and probably beach operations too.
Yeah, right. So with the camera angles and everything, are you actually testing this stuff, or do you just let it rip on the day?
We're going to get there the day before, the
Yep.
night before the afternoon, and we're looking to have one camera up on the point or in front near where the judges are, and another one on the angle further down the pathway in that other activation zone I was saying.
Yep.
One on the boat that'll be driven by Sully. Glenn Sullivan's coming out with his boat, and we'll have a cameraman out there, probably Adrian Emerson. And then we'll have a fixed off camera up at the commentary for myself and whoever's just going to waffle on and hopefully provide you some info on the action. And then we'll also have Sean Peterson and his business partner flying drones,
Oh,
and
he's a
that drone
gun, isn't he?
angle.
Yeah.
Sorry,
He's a gun on the drone, isn't he, Sean?
mate, he's excellent. He's really come leaps and bounds. He helped heaps last year, and he's going to be more involved this year. And he's only got better and better. And he's even got back on the boog recently after his injury, and
Yep.
he's loving it even more. So great to have him involved. And yeah, as you said, he's a great drone driver. So I think that'll be everyone wants to see drone footage these days. Like even I know I've referred back to the Gold Coast Pro a couple of times, but watching the drone angle of Toledo's barrel to that big, loop air forward thing that he did, that just gave you such good insight as to how he threaded that thing, how he coiled up like a spring, and then he came up to the lip and just projected so well. If you would have looked at on a normal fixed camera on the beach or whatever, you're not getting that. Like the drone angle showed everything there. So I think back to your point about making sure you can kind of capture the essence of the moment, I think the drone's really, really important there.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, I'm pumped. I'm so pumped for this challenge. Again, like the last one, that was the first comp I've sat down for 8 or however many hours it ran for. I didn't leave the lounge. I just sat there all day watching it, which was sick. First time I've done it in probably since the last challenge, really. So I'm pumped for it. But what's the perfect scenario for you?
Oh, we talk about this a lot in the chat, Mark, Sam, and myself. What is the perfect scenario? The perfect scenario would be a sunny weekend
Yep.
that we could capture like we did last year with that Sunday. Um, the swell, there's a couple of different styles of swell you could have depending on the tides that are present. But if you had a nice high tide in the middle of the day, obviously the east southeast between like 100 to 110, 120 is ideal. But considering that we don't always get those swells, and the East Coast predominantly in winter gets more of those big southerly lows that kind of come up the coast, that make their way from the Arctic shelf, kind of hit Tassie and hover there at the bottom, but usually slip behind New Zealand. Um, you can have, degrees of like 140 to 150, 160 starting to get a little bit too south. But if you have the right conditions on those kind of mid-range tides, there is opportunity to run the comp there because if the period's long enough for those swells, they will wrap around the island. And we've noticed that usually on like a kind of mid-tide, not completely high, more so like between a zero point 0.8 to maybe a 1.4, those swells perform really well. And if we are to get something like that, at least that allows for barrel riding, for air bowls, and wave selection becomes critical, not just because you're going trying to go the biggest and gnarliest east ones, but more so because you need to be picking those ones that are going to horse you and wrap from the peak, unload through White Rock, and then give you an air bowl or a barrel at the end of surge. So we've got a couple of options there. There is a swell popping up next week around the 31st and the 1st that has potential. It has an underlying east swell at the moment, but unfortunately it's only around the 2 to 3 foot range. And the charts are only saying about 160 to 155 degrees at the moment, south-southeast. So we've just got to see how that goes. But yeah, ideally, big low spinning in the Tasman. High comes in underneath after it. That low doesn't get pushed off from the high. It just keeps spinning there. slowly moves away over 4 or 5 days, and you get a constant infeed of like southeast, east, southeast swell with good winds behind you. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen, sorry, that often. So we've just got to cross our fingers and our toes and just make sure that we're just always kind of scouring the charts and making sure that yeah, we just don't miss anything. Hence why we went on orange alert for the last swell.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, I've got everything crossed for you. It's going to happen one year. We're going to have that glorious year again. Like I loved last year as well. That was epic. So, and I'm sure regardless, this year's going to be sick too. But we sort of done this whole podcast ask about for for me, and my brain's pretty cooked. But like, let's jump way back before the challenge and everything. I want to know a bit more about you as well. Where you came up, how you found bodyboarding. Give us some background on you.
Well, I was extremely lucky when I was younger because growing up in the Shire was epic, and there's great waves here. But mum and dad, well, my grandfather actually built a place down at Narrawali, which is just a little place north of Ulladulla. And we had a holiday house on Parkinson Street. Unfortunately, got sold out from us in about 2006 or seven, due to family squabbles. But for about 16 or 17 years there, I was either at Cronulla or at Grace Point, roaming around the national park, and then getting waves at Cronulla, and then heading down to Narrawali and all of our possible holidays. And obviously being down there, Ulladulla, there's great waves around. There's good south coast swells, and you're exposed to pretty open oceans, especially on the north end of Narrawali, which copped a lot of south swell. And we would constantly bodyboard there at a young age. My dad was a Nilo and a surfer, but loved being a Nilo. But he
Neil.
had no prejudice towards any sort of craft. He was like, man, just ride whatever. Like, just it's good to see out in the water, just have fun. I was really lucky with that because I was never steered in any way, shape, or form to a certain craft. It was like just go have fun in the ocean. I try and replicate that with my sons too, because it's like it's got to see what you really love. And so when I was younger, we were just constantly going down there, and I just got more and more involved with bodyboarding. I remember one of my good friends, John Agnew, back in the day. He had a Mason Rose DK board, and I had a Damien King bat tail. When he was doing when he was with Rio Piper, and he signed that $1 million deal. That,
Jeez.
yeah, spanned it over a couple of years, but
Yeah.
great board. Really kept me going, and that's where things kind of took off, and I progressed from the point to the patch to the islands around 12 or 13 as you start to enter high school, and it all just went from there. And I remember doing school surfing and school bodyboarding with a lot of the Groms and some Pats, Tom Flynn and Ant Beard and Milky Bar Kid Josh, and yeah, so many cool Groms just growing up. I was really good mates with Sam Strachan. He was a lot younger than me, I think 4.5 years, but his skill level was well above so many other people. So it was great bodyboarding with him. We went on great trips together. And we just started kind of living and dying for bodyboarding. You know what I mean? Like it was, you'd go drive down. Once I got my license, you would just go drive down the coast and surf Aussie Pipe in the morning, or and come back for Suck Rock in the afternoon, or like vice versa, depending on if it was northwest or northeast in the morning, or like whatever the swell was doing. We weren't adverse to driving further, and just love the open road, love the adventure, love the challenge of bodyboarding, love the back up against your wall kind of shit, because you were the kind of outcast in the surfing community. And I'm not a very good physical fighter, but I don't mind um, getting a little bit gritty and not backing down when it comes to making sure that like you're getting your waves in the lineup and you're not walked over, so to speak. And I really like that about bodyboarding because it was so underground, it was so core, and you were doing it for the right reasons. I'm not saying surfers don't do it for the right reasons, but I think surfers occasionally get led down these paths of sponsorship and winning comps and all this sort of stuff. And they're not doing it for the right reason half the time. They're getting pushed by their parents because they think there's a career in it. Where bodyboarding, like, yes, there was a career at the time, but still only a select few were doing it. And you just were going to gnarlier waves. You were going to gnarlier places. I remember on my first trips to South Oz in 2017 in no 2019, sorry, in Sean Pine's People Mover, and we had six of us. And this car's just like loaded up to the nines. I mean, we went in December, and like not many people go to South Oz in December. Like it's not the most opportunistic time when it comes to tides, swells, or winds. But we wanted to go, and Pino had been before, shown by his father, and I remember one scene. All six of us were driving around in our underwear because we had cooked the auto transmission in the car by overloading it so much that we had to then, in the 40-degree summer heat in South Oz, turn on the heaters inside the car to take heat away from the motor and to just limp our way through from I can't remember where it was. What's the town? What's the halfway town there? You're halfway across Australia sign. I forgot
Uh,
the name of it.
yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, people would know. Listen, and I just remember those scenes of like sleeping on the side of the road, just underneath the starlit skies. You know, barely anything to our name, just scraping by, eating out of tuna cans, like just like living and breathing an adventure, and then that stuck, and we would start to go down to Victoria and surf Lunas, and we'd then end up going to Hawaii, or you'd go do a trip to WA, and you'd stay at Prebley Caravan Park, and you'd lock in the gas and in North Point, and you'd go surf all these exotic waves, and just like there was so much to do, you know what I mean? There was so much to see. My eyes just lit up. And yeah, I remember a really good session down at Luna's where Jack Baker, God bless Jack Baker, the mayor of Cronulla, he probably had too many Susies this morning, and I asked him. I said, mate, my fins are in your car. We've already walked down the track, and there's about 300 odd stairs down at the bottom of Luna's. Can you please bring my fins? And didn't realize at the time, but like this swell was really growing from like a certain direction that starts to make the end bolt Luna's wrap in really hard. And there was a rising swell, super long period. I think it was 15 or 16 seconds. And like, he's brought two fucking left fins down, mate. Like, and I'm just looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, well, we're not walking back up those stairs. I'm gonna have to paddle out in this rising swell. And at the time, I was kind of just like, okay, I'll get through this. I mean, this will be sweet. There's no issue here. Get out there, bigger than what you think when you get out there. Sets start approaching, like 6 wave sets, like super huge, like one after the other, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We lasted about half an hour, and then these cleanup sets came through, wiped out the whole lineup except Moody Young and Chris Della. Me, Jack, Sam Van, and forgotten the Tahitian fella's name who was there also hanging out. Lovely fella, really good bodyboarder too. We all got wiped out. I tried to get through the first one, sucked back. The second one got bigger and bigger. I've just punched through the lip as it's starting to curl over. And then I've come up, and all the sprays whipping over my face. Couldn't see anything for 2 or 3 seconds. And then I just see it, the Godzilla coming towards us. And by now, like Sam and Jack had already been taken because they were further in. They'd been washed into the kelp farm and forest down on the inside of that wave, which half drowns you anyway before you can even get out of the fucking place. And I just remember this wave coming, and I knew it was over, and just bailing the board, trying to swim under it with two left fins, getting ripped up, leash straight off, me not pushing a lagoon on the inside, but wrapped and pushed into the impact zone, and then pushed over to the cliffs on the right. And man, I'm telling you, like, you know, you have moments in life where you think to yourself, oh, I'm in a bit of trouble or whatever. This was the moment where I thought, this is it. And one more wave hits me with the amount of oxygen I've got in my lungs and the amount of lactic acid just, pumping around my body. I was cramping, I was crippled. I was like, it's done. Just somehow floated in there, bobbed around for about 20 minutes, somehow got back into the inside, crawled up onto the rocks, let myself just wash over it, found my board half an hour later. All the boys were just like drowned rats. And that was still one of the scariest moments that I've ever had on the boog. It was so gnarly. So it was just, yeah, like another challenge, Another challenge too was like growing up with the bra boys around home. That
Yep.
was one of the real challenges because, Lester, Leon, Benny Hall, Ben Williams, Ringer, they had, unbeknown to us really, they had it packed with the bra boys. They
Yeah.
used to serve Cape back in the day.
Yep.
Kobe wasn't having a bar of it, so he made, you know, a bargain, or say like an ultimatum with him. Pretty much an ultimatum. He's not bargaining. He just told him. He said, "We've got Cape, ours. You've got the island." And to Kobe's word, he never came out the island again.
Right.
And those boys held their word too. And they had waves out there in tension. Chris White had flip waves, all that sort of stuff. Like they got some really good ones out there. But to this day, they've kind of held their word and haven't ventured out there again. Where we were the next generation, didn't realize that. So Pino, Sean Notley, Sam Strachan, Ryan Hart, all those boys, and Kobe Kobe wasn't friendly. He was a real gnarly dude, and I can remember having to look at the headland of Cape. There's Cape, Yenas, and Outer Cape, or Daggers. There's a couple of different names for them, but there's three really good waves along that coastline, and in between Outer Cape and Yenas, there's this huge gorge that runs down the cliff. It's called like the goat track, and there's all washed up boats in there, buoys, car axles, everything. You have to scale down this, and this is when the Bra Boys were surfing Cape. You couldn't come to the car park, so you'd park up on the top of the cliff, make your way down this goat track, jump out through 8 to 10 foot surges of water coming through this tiny little keyhole, and you would float over to, say, Guinness, or maybe even Cape Lefts every now and again. And I can remember one vivid day where Kobe had just a run of Cape. He was loving it. He had a Red Bull ski with Carl Rothman on it, and he was peacocking. He was putting the chest out. He was loving it. It's my hometown. Fucking show these bodyboarders coming out here. We were keeping ourselves. He was having the glory over there. I mean, I can remember being harassed by that jet ski with Carl Rothman and Kobe for about 5 minutes of literally circling me, trying to run me over, trying to like get me caught up in the tow rope, all this sort of stuff, just for surfing a wave that was next to his glorified own wave. You know what I mean? The one that he called his. And it occurred to me during that moment, and many other altercations in the car park, where he would come up and he'd see you hide in the bushes, he'd chase you up to the car, and we'd lock the doors, and he'd come up and try and smash the window, and then he'd make us wind down the window just ever so slightly, and he'd just whisper into it like, "I know who you are," just like trying to fuck with you and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Excuse me about my phone going off then. But yeah, and just like just the run-ins you would have with those Bra Boys over that time was just ridiculous, Dan. And I think it made us a lot more resilient. And it looking back at it now, um, karma's kind of caught up with Kobe, and karma's caught up with a lot of those fellas. I'm not saying they were all bad dudes. They might have just been led along by a ringleader, but I do think Kobe over in Indo at the moment in exile. And with a lot of other individuals here on the East Coast looking to have a chat with him, I think um, I think things have worked themselves out, and karma's kind of sorted that, and it was really the making of me and a lot of my friends, because you had to really man up and just not not kind of cop the crap.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's I never experienced it a lot then. I actually went to Bosco. So you mentioned you went to St. Pat's. So
Yeah,
I went to Bosco, and that was kind of a weird one because for me, I lived down Cronulla way, but I lived in Engadine, I guess, till I was 6 or 7. Then I moved down there, and I didn't want to change schools, so I always made the trip to Bosco.
yeah,
But doing that, like I guess my friend group, a lot of people who go to Bosco are from like the South Coast, so they're from Steel Park, Helensburgh, all that way down there, and it was kind of split down the middle. So the blokes from Engadine would all bodyboard, and the blokes from South would all surf, but we'd all sort of commingle. So we'd go down to Stanley Park and surf, and they'd be up Cronulla. So we always sort of got along with them. But I obviously saw my fair share of surf drama, but it's something I hope it's sort of getting away from a bit now. I guess, and maybe it's more slab style surfers who are seeing these bodyboarders come in just doing crazy shit. Like Marty, when I spoke to him, he said the Boogs are just the best, craziest people to watch out there.
yeah.
And I hope it's breaking down. Like, what's the lineup like down there now?
At the island or Shippies?
No, probably at the island, around Cronulla.
Yeah.
Even just in general.
Um, it definitely got a lot better. Like, for example, Kirk Flintoff would never really want to see you out Cape. He would never tell you to go in, but he'd just tell you the Bar Boys are coming and you know, you better watch out and whatever. And he was told too by the Bar Boys that he had to let us know what was going on, and if he didn't, he wasn't allowed to surf the wave and all sort of stuff. And they'd say it to Kip, and they'd say it to a lot of Matt Griggs, like a lot of different surfers out there. But as you just to your point, they start to see, you know, us pushing with them, and it just goes bam, 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 and you know, a bodyboarder does something, a surfer does something, a bodyboarder does something, a surfer does something, a bodyboarder tries to emulate that, and it's just to and fro. You know, even for example, like bringing up from last year, I don't know if you saw the shot from Sam Vand of Noah Dean doing that huge loop out at Cape.
Oh, I probably know the photo, not off the top of my head though.
If you've got time, I think it's in one of the most recent surfing lives or surfing worlds. But when I saw that, I just said to myself, okay, so there's the next thing. You know what I mean? There's been airs done out there. You know, we've all done an air forward or maybe an invert or something. I've seen John Shao do huge backflips. There's people definitely done some cool airs out there. But when I saw that from the surfing level, I was like, oh, there's the next step. You know, it's not just the barrel anymore. It's not just avoiding the backwash. It's not watching out for the cliffs and making sure half your body doesn't get ripped off by, you know, razor sharp barnacles as big as your dick. It's like there's there's the air. Do you know what I mean? And that's the next step. And I think, you know, surfers and bodyboarders alike coming together, and all sorts of crafts, you know, like you can all learn something from one another. And the lineups are now really respecting that, you know, like Matty Holman or Jordan Taransky, two really good surfers from here in Cronulla. Love the boog.
Yeah.
Enjoy booging. You know what I mean? And on a smaller day or a day that he's not really keen on catching waves on a stand up, Matty Holman will come out the island pulling a couple of iron lefts and love it and froth out. And you see that multidisciplinary approach through all really good bodyboarders. Like look at Harry surfers, look at Harry Bryant. You look at Noah Dean, who loves it. You look at Sean Manners. There's so many different people now that are mixing and matching. And I think if we all can take something from one another and could be like, wow, that line that surfer drew is really cool. Or I loved how that bodyboarder came underneath the hood, and I wonder how I'll get my craft to do that, and all this sort of stuff. It's only just the level's going to get better and better. No more hatred and divide. No more weird shit like that because why? Like we're all out there trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Nathan Florence is a huge example of that. Like he's a shining light moving forward with that because he respects everyone in the water. And I think that aggro is slowly being taken out, you know. Anyone who's got that egotistical view anymore that they're better than someone because they're on a craft can fuck off, in my opinion. It's such a G up. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, what makes you better? What, because you get to your feet? Well, lay down your stomach and see how you do it, man. You know what I mean? It may look easy to you, but there's a whole art to that too. And then there's a whole art of getting onto your knees. And then if you want to bring stand up paddleboarding into it, go over to Chopes and watch cunts pushing 12 footers on a stand up paddleboard. You'll start to get an idea of that. Like, there's many ways to skin a cat, and it's not just with three fins and a fucking 5'8" surfboard or 5'11" surfboard.
Yeah, I think it's a culture thing as well. It's what you grow up with. Like they grow up looking down, or vice versa, and it's just like it's like the war that no one knows how it started.
Yeah. What are we fighting for?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess with those more serious waves like shippies, um, when they're so dangerous, it sort of comes out in the wash. It's like, nah, we're all here. Like,
Yeah.
let's look out for each other. Let's enjoy the show and just fucking have a good time.
And we're doing it for the same reasons. We're doing it for a challenge. We're doing it for the exhilarating thrill of like threading through a moving wall of water. Like I think sometimes people forget that what you're doing out there is not to get a photo or a clip or whatever. You're kind of entering a cosmic state. You're going through a tube that's like, you know, a water funnel that's been produced by this huge energy system or weather system and a long time far away. You know, like how many times, I don't know if you caught, I think it was like at the start of autumn, there was a couple of crazy swells from the Arctic ice shelf called the Ross Sea down on the bottom of Antarctica. And
Right.
it's one of the furthest places away that you can get a swell generated for the East Coast.
Yeah. Okay.
And they had two in 2 weeks. Swellner did a really good job of highlighting it. And that system is forming from I don't know how many thousand kilometers away. But to then think that's formed off an Arctic ice shelf with some of the most ferocious storms that you could ever imagine brewing down there, and then that's sending a pulsing line or the band of energy that's made its way from that ice shelf, bypassed New Zealand, bypassed Tassie, has made it up to the East Coast and is hitting our favourite surf spots at a great angle with, a lot of period in it and creating great waves is something to be marveled at, something to behold. Like that, you're not going to grab a fucking basketball and going to play, shoot some hoops down at the local court with your mates. Which, again, not trying to take away from it. I think that's great too. But there's a real cosmic essence to surfing and bodyboarding and all water sports, and that needs to be celebrated and appreciated. And going back to the Island Challenge, that's exactly what that's all about too. So yeah, I think it's really breaking down and hopefully moving forward, it's just all that crap's thrown in the bin.
Yep, just get the stoke in. I guess like bodyboarding as a whole, what do you think, if it's possible, to bring it back to its former glory, back in the day when it was, $1 million contracts and that sort of thing? Like, I think it'd take about 20 Shane Ackermans running around doing crazy shit. But what do you think? Like, as a bit of a, because I guess bodyboarding for me, small choppy stuff, it's just not that great to watch. Whereas
It
big
isn't.
slabs, that's what you watch. But what do you
That's
think it's going to take?
Dude, that's the biggest difference, man. That's the hardest thing. The hardest thing is to watch surfing in mediocre waves and get enjoyment out of it because that's done on a regular basis, and then, well, that's the easiest thing, and then the hardest thing is to watch bodyboarding in mediocre waves and get no enjoyment out of it, knowing that the skill level is required is still the same. You still need to make small waves look good. You still need to kind of get tech and produce speed when there's no speed to be produced from. Draw lines that get you to the lip in time on short period crappy waves. I think mm, to to make bodyboarding a world class product, it needs to simplify its competition structure. And I think it needs to realize that it's got a very hardcore product on its day, but it's not a 10 stop CT WSL tour where you can turn up at events and say if J Bay's 3 to 4 foot, you've still got Geordie Smith going to blow the back off waves with his style and power. With bodyboarding, like when you look at front on, when you look at chopes, when you look at the arm, when you look at pipe, when you look at even a Rika, those waves are a pure consequence, and that's what a bodyboarder needs. So I think if we just simplify the tour down to 3 or 4 spots, make like a essential kind of championship challenge, so to speak, and really draw the crowds in that way, and not just flog a dead horse at locations that we like. For example, Sintra in Portugal has a lot of history with bodyboarding. The comp has been there for a couple of decades now, on and off. That way is pretty fucked most of the time.
Yeah.
Like most of the time. Don't when you watch Pierre go out there and Ethan Capdeville or Amore, Tristan Roberts, they're going to make it look pretty good in certain ways. But even them at times, you're kind of like, this is like a 3 foot mush burger out the back where they're literally doing rolls and spins going into this gutter in the shore. Like, there's passionate bodyboarders, and then there's just people who want to see, the slab riding for what it is. And you go onto YouTube, you type in the Cintra Pro, and then you type in the Cape session or like an iconic pipe comp back in like 2008 or 9 or like something like that. The views are going to be so drastically different because that's the product we want. We want the hardcore bodyboarding. We want the big ramps. We want the big bowls. We want the big barrels. We want drama. We want people risking their lives. Surfing doesn't need that element because there's so many different facets to it where bodyboarders, in my opinion, need slabby, solid, consequential waves to kind of make it look good. And I think that's where we need to head. Compress to make sure we focus on quality, not quantity.
And I 100% agree with that. And that leads me into my next question there. You got any other projects you're working on now to make that a reality?
Um, I don't. Well, I mean, I really hope to be bringing back the podcast pretty soon. I've had a bit of a
Oh, yeah.
hiatus from it. but and that also, is a really good avenue to kind of make conversations happen exactly like you are doing here on your program, man. Just having those conversations and getting that information out there and creating the stoke that we want. But there are a couple of crew, and I won't name their names at the moment because it's still in the works, but there is some whispers of a pretty cool comp coming out of the South Coast that could really spark up some interest in bodyboarding and would really solidify its position as a world class sport if this competition comes off. There has been a previous comp held there before. It's probably one
Okay.
of the greatest bodyboarding comps we could remember on record, especially for the unique location of the wave and the riders who were in it at the time. But I won't give anything else away, but just saying that that's probably, in my opinion, the next level up that we need to kind of achieve to get that sport where it needs to be. I mean, the IBC are trying to do the best they can with the locations they've got on tour, and I'm sure they're restricted with a lot of their like logistical kind of restraints. They've only got so much money to work with. They've only got so many promoters that will also give them positions, locations in the world that they could tap into. I think they also need to branch out and maybe get away from that model of relying on a promoter to gather all their budget and their resources and just kind of do some of the heavy lifting themselves, because we were in conversations with them when we first started the comp back up, and it came off to us that we would be gathering the money and the budget for the event through sponsorships and marketing rallies and stuff, but wouldn't be the event would be sanctioned by the IBC, but then it would be taken over by their operational staff to run and manage it. But I think that kind of whole blueprint should be tweaked a little bit. So that's something to work on there. But yeah, again, just going back to the point, like it has to be quality. It has to be quality. It's like has to be the Olympic Games style quality where like you want to tune in. It has to be like a grand final finish there. Even for like even so, like I would love to see a really good toe out comp brought back. Like Moody
Bodyboard.
Young, yeah, in bodybuilding, like Moody Young and Michael Chappell did a really cool South Coast comp for a number of years there, and they gave away classic prize. I'm pretty sure they gave away like a beaten up Corolla one year, and like just funny, like sideways prize. But it was all about being core and just not going to the comp for money, so to speak, but for the prestige of getting whipped into the biggest air you could possibly do and push the sport of bodyboarding that way. And I think that's also another avenue we could look to go down, because you've got jet ski assist, you can do it in 3 foot waves, and it's an air show, so people get a lot of bang for buck there. Like, you even look at the Rome intros. Rome 1 and 2 did it so well, man. When they mixed trips all around the world with then on average days going out and towing bodyboarding, not into big slabs, but actually at ramps, oncoming closeouts. It's such a spectacle. Like, you
Yeah.
can't tell me that, Jake Stone or Glenn Thurston or Chris James or Michael Noble going, 10, 15, sometimes 20 foot. Like, Jake Stone, I swear to God, went 20 foot above some of these waves. And that's going to capture audiences. Like,
Yeah,
I
just the
think
wow factor there.
exactly. And unfortunately, our attention spans are getting smaller and smaller, Dan. So, like, that needs to come in. And you look at all the different sports that are coming through these days, like, who on earth would have thought that, like, what's that? What's that, like, Eastern European slapping sport, where they're just, like, lining dudes up and it's just like you get one
Not the
slap.
UFC's ones. Dana
Sorry?
White's ones. They slap fucking something. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Dana White does it, the UFC guy.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yep.
and then even, like, the UFC, to your point, like, there's so much drama and wow factor in those sports. Like, look at cricket, for example. I'm a cricket tragic. I love cricket. You got to be a tragic to watch that game, or a super passionate
Yeah.
person, because it's slow. You've got to understand that bowling 20 overs in the field is ridiculous, and it's so hard on the body. And, every time a bowler comes in, you put about 8 times your body weight through your front foot. Hence why Brett Lee had like 2 ankle operations through his whole career, because he would just go so ham. But the general public don't understand that and don't care, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
they
I don't
wanna
understand
see
what you just
something.
said.
Yeah, see? Exactly, man. I don't blame you, bro, but, you know, it's gotta have the wow factor, and if bodyboarding can capture that, we're on the right path.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the UFC stuff as well, they got characters outside. Like, look at Volk. Like, he cracks me up, man. He's social media, everything. He cooks, he fishes, he's outside of fighting as well. He's also a character. And
Yeah,
that's what draws people in to want to watch that one fight or whatever he does because he is who he is. So it'd be good to slot a few of those characters in there. But and then you got to get the airtime as well. So that's the other
exactly,
thing.
man, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's you even look back on the tension videos and the culture that made is on the same premise, you know what I mean? Of, like,
Yeah.
having those characters in the sport, like, you would see Kingy on an acoustic guitar, just strumming away, like free soloing songs and all that sort of stuff. Or you'd see Whitey walking across Cronulla crossings, like dropping microwaves in front of like build up traffic, or you know, just like
Aaron.
Sean Virtue surfing nude in the Philippines. You know what I mean? Like all that sort of shit needs to be in bodyboarding, and if it can be captivated and then kind of hash back out to the public in a well cut and professional manner, but still holding its culture. I think that's where we succeed.
Definitely. Well, I hope it gets there, man. Like, I'm going to wrap this up shortly because this is like midnight for me.
Yeah, you got to be up.
Ready to fall
Okay,
asleep.
great.
But
I really appreciate you doing late at night, man. Like,
no,
it's hard.
don't even sweat. Like, I just appreciate your time. Like, honestly, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to talk to Lester. I'm stoked to talk to you. Anyone about bodyboarding, I've always got time for because I just froth on it.
Cheers, Dan.
And you mentioned tension in that. I've got this bloody bodyboarding movie. I used to watch it when I was younger. And I used to watch it all the time. And it just popped back into my head a few years ago. And I've been trying to look for it. And I cannot think of what it is. And all I remember from it was it had one section that played Barnacles and Stripes by something with numbers.
Oh,
And I
dude,
cannot remember what bodyboarding movie that actually came from. It drives me insane.
that was on my iPad, on my iPod. I
Yeah.
remember that because that was when and I'm so glad you brought something numbers up because I've actually forgotten about them. They're so
Yeah.
good. Oh, man. Um,
Yeah,
oh,
it drives me nuts. I used to watch it on VHS, whatever it was, or maybe a DVD if it came with a bodyboard mag or something. I can't remember.
dude, this would be great for like having a little, not reel on Instagram, when you put the questions up, how have I just had a blank on that? Like a
Poll.
quiz or yeah, like a poll, exactly, like to even lead into this episode or like whatever you want to do. But that's something we need to get to the bottom of because
I gotta know.
yeah, those songs that they're nostalgic.
Yeah,
They really take you back to a certain time, freer youth and just a bit more carefree. And you know who we should ask? Idris Ways. I worked with Sean Gregory Cooper doing my pool trade back in the day, and he's the president of Gold Coast Bodyboarding Club. Lovely fella.
right.
Won the Australian tour. Famously beat Mitch Rawlins down at the South Cronulla Pro. It's supposed to be held somewhere in Cronulla and end up at big washy South Cronulla. He's probably going to hate me saying that because I've just thrown it out there, and we talk. I always bring it up with him because it's such a big moment. But his good mate Idris Wace, who was also an amazing bodyboarder from the South Coast and featured in a lot of those underground films. He's got a photographic memory when it comes to
All
bodyboarding
right.
tools. So we might have to reach out to him. Something with numbers. Was it
Barnacles and Stripes.
Barnacles and
It's not even
Stripes?
on Spotify. That song. It's on. I had to find the song on YouTube.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I couldn't find it on Spotify unless I
Fuck,
spelled it wrong, but I got it on YouTube.
what have they done? Eh? How do they
I don't
not
know,
get on
man.
Spotify?
But I've been searching for that for years, and I
Yeah.
thought you'd be the guy to ask.
Let me get back to you. I promise. I'll hit up Idris. He'll probably know like that.
Yeah, good. Let's find out. Done. Well, mate, look, I hope the island goes off. I hope you get that perfect swell and it just sends bodyboarding back into the stratosphere of everything and leads into bigger and better things again. And I just appreciate your time today. Appreciate you chatting with me. I'm going to make a trip. If it's on a weekend, I'm coming down for sure. And I'm very soon, I'm going to make the trip down just to get out the island just for old time's sake and have a paddle around again, mate. But again, I appreciate your time. You're a legend, and we got to do this again. I'm sure you got plenty more stories to share.
Dude, definitely. I'd love to. Thank you for having me on. And yes, when you come down, bro, you have to let us know. And We'll get you in the VIP. We'll get you out on the ski. We'll get you out in the water and just have a good time. I can tell the froth and how much it means to you, and it's cool to see because that's the exact reason why we're doing it. And yeah, just the more people down there, the merrier. So, just a quick little cheerio and like a sign off. If anyone wants to watch the comp this year, it will be streamed live on Sporting News on their YouTube channel. Please keep following our socials. There'll be updates throughout the event window, and yeah, anyone wants to come down, tell your boss they're a mug if they don't let you have a sickie, and get on down there and let's have a good time with the after party. That'll be held at Ridges Cronulla or Tarrant Point Bowling Club, depending on the availability of Ridges and their events at the time. But yeah, Frothing man, and again, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for doing this late at night. I know we both got families and jobs, and you know, you're doing this on the side, so I completely know what you're doing and how much it is to organise these things. So again, Dan, thank you so much, bro.
No, mate, I love it. I love the opportunity to chat to blokes like you. So we'll get it done. I'll throw all those links in this bio. We'll do a couple of reels with it. We'll get it everywhere we can. And yeah, when you actually go live with the challenge, we'll throw that in the story with the link and all that sort of thing as well. So hopefully we can get some more eyes on it. Anyway,
Yeah,
mate, I appreciate it. You're a legend.
Frothing Dan, cheers. You.